maybe Didier Deschamps is the weak link.
Well, yeah, good. I mean, you've got.
I know he's won a World Cup, but listen, you know, there's the national team managers winning tournaments is one thing. Look at Jurgen Löw at Germany. He doesn't walk into the Madrid job, although we did get linked with Madrid, I think, once or twice, but he didn't walk into like a league because it is a special thing. You know, Jurgen Klinsmann led Germany in 2006. You know, it was a great tournament for them in so many respects where they were at before, and so on and so forth. It's not quite the same. You could just be Gareth Southgate is never going to be an elite manager, but he did a reasonable job with England, and there's some debate on either side of that, maybe even better than reasonable. Maybe I'm being harsh, but do you know what I mean? So Deschamps, if and when he leaves, I think he's actually going to leave France after this World Cup. Yeah, he probably won't ever get a job as big as he had. I think it was at Monaco, wasn't it? Which was kind of where we sort of saw him grow as a coach. Yeah. He was linked with the Chelsea job, big style. And that Monaco Porto final of 2004, some people thought it was a shootout. I think probably if Chelsea did their homework, which they probably did, they would have gone for Mourinho anyway, and they wouldn't be relying on the result of one match to dedicate. Yeah. I mean, Man United have done that once or twice in recent years, and certainly with Ten Hag and to some extent Amorim, just relying on one result and then pursuing with that manager. So, yeah, but I don't know if you remember that far back, but I see him he's not an elite manager in the same way that, for example, Tuchel is or Carlo Ancelotti is, despite, you know, the Brazil early exit here and so on. So I see Tuchel from England's perspective and we're coming to England now, actually. I see Tuchel as an advantage, let's say, and Didier Deschamps as less an advantage. Or am I bigging up Tuchel too much and being too harsh on Deschamps, or what do you think?
No. I think England have taken away the Norway game and maybe the Ghana game as well. But I think we've seen glimpses of England.
Glimpses
against Croatia, for example, of the England that a lot of us outside England always expect. Like in Spain, there's always a huge buzz around England because you see the names, Premier League names, and everyone always says, "Oh, look out for England." Yeah. But then performance is always miles away from where it should be. And I think there with Tuchel, you know, you think, oh, this is the manager that should be able to bring out the best out of the team. That game against Croatia, that was what I think everybody expects England to be, sort of like free-flowing, attacking, fun. But then for some reason, they've gone back into their shell again. I think the Norway game, massively lucky to get through that one. I think the second half
was crazy.
Completely dominated by Norway.
We made them look like Barcelona 2011 or something in the second half, and Norway are not Barcelona 2011. The amount of possession they had and just pinging it around, it was.
I was just thinking it's a matter of time before Norway score. But England's got this knack, and I think English people aren't aware because you're normally negative towards your own team. You always think, fans always think, oh, that's typical us. We did this. Typical us. We lost on penalties. Typical us to lose in the last 5 minutes. England fans should be aware, and I think you only see this when you're not English or when you're not an England fan, is the amount of games that England win where they're not better than the other team, but they're not even playing well. And you think, how have they pulled that off? That's an incredible ability to have, especially in a tournament. Like Slovakia at the Euros should be gone. Be gone. But talking of clutch, England is so good at turning up with like a 90th minute goal, set pieces, balls into the box. That's such a weapon to have.
Penalties now. Colombia and Switzerland spring to mind in recent years. I'm trying to think that we lost to Italy in a penalty shootout as well, but yeah.
But people go to, we lost on penalties in 1990. No, like don't cling on to the negative. Like honestly, like when you play against England, I'm so fearful of last 5 minutes. That's something that Spain doesn't have, for example. Yes, I know now that Mikel Merino scored these goals in the last minute, but we don't have that ability to sort of put balls into the box, put bodies into the box, and something's going to happen. We've never had that, and I hate it because it's just like desperate. It's like the Cape Verde game. You just know as a Spain fan, it's happened to us against Morocco in the World Cup, happened to us against Russia, it's happened to us a million times where we just got the ball, we're going from side to side, and nothing happens. But England, like, that ability to just put a ball into the box, someone gets a head onto it always, someone, knocks it in with their ass at the far post. That is a huge ability to have. Like, and honestly, like I don't think people are aware because I think there's a very negative mindset with fans generally, but a lot of the England fans is always like 5 minutes into a game, oh, typical England, boring, we're playing rubbish.
The last time England played Argentina in a competitive match, do you know when it was?
Well, other than 98.
So no, since we've played them once since 98 in a competitive match.
Oh yeah. 2002 Korea, Beckham penalty down the middle. Oh, you were there?
Yeah, that's my ticket. And
Wow.
I was at an auction and bought a signed picture of Beckham a couple of years later and thought that'll work well together. So yeah, I was there, and I can tell you now, the tickets then were a lot.
Nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do think there was a sort of a sea change would be too strong an expression, but there was an evolution bordering on revolution. I think either from 94 to 98 or possibly even 98 to 2002 in terms. Now, this is another jump. This recent price hike since probably Qatar or certainly since Russia, because I was in Russia as well. In fact, I was there for the semi-final against Croatia. I was on ESPN Peru, although I think it was shown throughout Latin America. I did an interview after the match waxing lyrical about Luka Modric, I remember, in Spanish as well, Bruno. And it was on YouTube for a while. And it was great because I was showing off, of course, all the time. I'd had a few drinks, but that sort of added to the mirth of the interview. And then it got taken down on YouTube, which is a real shame because and I didn't put it there. Obviously, somebody just randomly put it there. And I guess ESPN got it taken down. But yeah, so that was that. But yeah, coming back to this one and also the prices. Yeah, I hear about prices from 94, World Cup 94, and they're paying, I don't know, $20, $30 to go in and see a round of 16 clash, So, and I know what they were like in 2002, 8 years later. They were a lot. But this, I know what I was going to say. This World Cup has been the Neymar transfer to PSG. Because I see that in terms of ticket prices, I saw that as a crazy line in the sand just because of the jump. I think Gareth Bale may have been the previous world record in terms of transfer. And the Neymar one was like double that, which was just, even whether it be Ruud Gullit 5.5 million or Shearer 15 million or Lentini 12 or 13 million or whatever it was, they would always go up. Even from Ronaldo to Bale was 5 or 6 million euros, sort of an 8% hike, but not double. And the ticket prices for this World Cup are just, those guys must be, pretty wealthy. I'm going on the website every now and again. I was really keen to maybe get off over to Mexico. I was thinking about spending maybe 10 days, seeing a couple of games. I've got a friend who lives in Monterrey. And then what would have been great is just to cap it off with I didn't know what the round of 16 clash was going to be, but getting a Mexico ticket was also very difficult because of being in Mexico City and Mexico playing. But I don't know, because of course with this dynamic pricing, you don't know exactly how much the people are paying. But I'm sure some people are paying, small fortunes, thousands for just one match. And I remember this one was a couple of hundred, and people were like thinking that was wild to spend a couple of hundred pounds on it because it was pounds then.
The problem is that stadiums are full. So if stadiums are full,
no, I know.
There's no reason for FIFA to say, "Oh, we need to bring it down." It's like but we're charging these prices and people are coming, so we're going to keep it there. But it's just become impossible. Like as a fan, I spoke to some of my friends as well. And we were thinking, should we fly out? If Spain reach the semis, what do you reckon? And then you just start looking at the numbers and you're thinking, it's like, you can't do some of the madness that some of these like Argentina fans do. That like sell their house.
Right. Yeah.
Go and watch Argentina play a game.
I went to every World Cup and Euros actually from 2002. So Japan was the first one until including 2020, 2021, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I saw at least one game at all of those tournaments. Some like South Africa, I saw, I think 7 altogether, including the final. Others, maybe Germany, for example, I just saw a couple of quarterfinals and so on and so forth. But I didn't go to Qatar. The last Euros, I went to a couple of games, including the final against Spain. I think I was maybe not quietly. I thought we had a chance against Spain, the way the match panned out. Of course, we did have a chance in terms of 2-1 loss, etc. Not the worst result in the world, but I thought we were probably a bit better than we were, and I probably should have looked at the performances and also just the Southgate. This is where the Southgate narrative, I think, is really important. And I know you can only beat what's in front of you, but coming second in that group to Belgium in 2018, we all knew it going into that game that losing the match to Belgium was maybe a good thing. And Belgium did incredibly well to get to the semis. You just can't just get through all those teams. England get to the semis and potentially the final with a much nicer route. And the same thing happened, I think, in 24, of course, when we get, Slovakia, followed by Switzerland, followed by a poor Netherlands team, compared to the other side of the draw where you had obviously Spain, France, and Germany. So, what about this match with Argentina? Who were the favourites? Because I think we see, or I see one side of it. You know, I do dip into Spanish speaking media, but much less Argentinian media. And I know that the consensus, actually, I'm a bit surprised because a lot of English media have been burnt probably with optimistic projections for England. But actually, they are sort of thinking that Messi aside, England have the better players. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think England are slight favourites.
Yeah, that's what that's like.
I think being the defending champions gives you that. So,
Yeah.
you know, you've got the belt until someone takes it off you. So
Yeah.
that, you know, that deserves the respect that comes with it. But I think Argentina should have been knocked out of this tournament.
Yeah, once or twice.
Already.
Yeah.
I think they've been a little bit. I don't want to go into like, you know, the politics behind stuff or whatever. But
well, there is, of course, that narrative. Yeah.
I think it's not black or white. I'm not saying, you know, you've reached semi-finals just because of referees. You obviously need. I mean, Egypt game. Yeah, you can look at. For me, it's a ludicrous decision to rule over that goal. But, you know, Egypt crumbled, and you could see they were going to crumble. Like the moment that Romero scored that goal, you just knew, everybody knew Argentina were going to win. So that's the thing about Argentina. They've got that grit. They've got that. They're so competitive. Like for them, the World Cup. We've got a lot of Argentinian friends. Obviously, a lot of Argentinian people in Spain. For them, the World Cup is. I was saying earlier how in Spain it's a bit of a. If Spain reach the semis and the finals, people get up for it. But group stage, everyone's like, oh. In Argentina, it's like 3 months in advance, like. Looking at, I've got this friend that was just constantly bombarding me with messages saying, so if we come first, we'll in second, but if Colombia comes, so that means in the quarters we'd get wherever. And I was like, wow, like this guy's just like every day studying the draw, you know, like for them. It's just
studying the draw, Bruno. Argentina also got the England this tournament because as soon as they qualified, it was like, oh, their path to the semis isn't bad. And that was also including a possible Colombia quarterfinal that never manifested itself.
Yeah, but
so, yeah.
That's another one though, like, Colombia, people were talking about Colombia as if it was, I don't know, Brazil from
82,
1998 or 2002. You know, like it's like Colombia, for me, what Spain used to be, the perennial underachievers. Every tournament you come into it, everyone's like, look out for Colombia. You know, Colombia, they could be dark horses. They never, like, they just never. It
would have been a South American derby.
It would have,
would have been more attractive for the neutral. I was not going to go
definitely.
I wanted to watch the Switzerland match and didn't. Especially after watching England prior to that. So, yeah, I think there would also been that element and probably a bit more risk, although as it turned out, Switzerland posed a pretty significant threat for the red card. But yeah.
With another draw.
For Argentina, a nice draw.
With another draw, I don't think they'd be here. Because, and I think the last World Cup, again, for me, the thing that Argentina are missing, or at least this generation of Argentina, is a big, big win against a big team. Yeah, they beat France in the final. But I mean like a big 90-minute win where you say they were dominating. They knocked Germany out and beat them 2-0 and Germany had nothing to do. They were miles ahead of them. Argentina have never done that for me. This Argentina, they beat Holland. That Holland team wasn't great in the World Cup and it was just about got over the finish line. And I don't know. I think you can never rule them out because they're so competitive. Like for them playing for Argentina is like the absolute maximum. You know, they'll give absolutely everything. And I think the fact that it's against England as well for them, they've got these huge rivalries and there's a lot of like literature to Argentinian football. You speak to them and they love talking about 1986, and this and Falklands and whatever. You know, they like being the hated team. I think they sort of thrive off.
Yeah,
they love it.
Yeah,
they love
I mean, we've seen it with coaches and stuff like this in the past. I saw Croatia using the "it's coming home" thing and pinning it up on the dressing room prior to that semi-final, and for sure, you know, we've known coaches and Ferguson probably no more than him than just reveling in this like everybody hates us kind of mentality.
They love it. They love everyone.
Argentina in Latin America, Bruno, as you may well know, is kind of nobody really thinks about Brazil because they're a Portuguese-speaking country. It's just not on the radar. But if you speak from anyone from Mexico all the way down to Chile, it's Argentina. I mean, I've lived with some of these people. I lived with a Mexican in Hamburg during the 2018 World Cup, and we would watch Argentina. It didn't matter who they were playing. He wanted X team to win. You know, I think they played Iceland in one match, for example, and they were in a bit of trouble. I think they lost to Croatia, but still squeezed through the group, I think.
Yeah.
And then, of course, lost to France, as it turned out, in a fantastic match. There's a couple of France-Argentina matches of legendary nature in recent years. So there is one other player, though, Bruno, that we probably shouldn't sleep on, which is Julian Alvarez, of course, who was at Man City, did okay there, but Man City's like levels are, we need to win the Champions League and the Premier League every year, and if you're not helping us contribute to that, then you're out. It's almost sort of a Madrid-Barcelona style scenario, and certainly when those two clubs were in their pomp at various points in the last 15 years. Then he goes to Atletico, and he's like the absolute star of the show. He's also the just behind Messi in the star of the show for Argentina at the moment, which is obviously saying something. And won't he go to Barcelona thing? It's this sort of suggestions it might be back on, but Atletico have put a huge bounty on his head. I don't know if that expression works in this expression, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I mean, mustn't sleep on him, right?
Yeah, Julian, for me, first season at Atletico Madrid, incredible. Second season, went missing. I mean, he went on a run of, 3 months without a goal, something like that. In La Liga, so he got one in the Champions League, but it took him a very long time to.
So it seems like a lot of money to me because I didn't see him a lot at Atletico last, but I saw how he was at Man City, and he was good. He's just not top.
I agree. I think he's a very good player, but the money that's being talked about for me, he's not there. He's a good player, but Atletico Madrid this year, he went missing for a very long time. Some people argue Simeone, the way Simeone plays, doesn't help Julian. But they said that about Griezmann as well, and Griezmann was incredible.
Right, and also Simeone bought him, so it's not like he got lumbered with him. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think he's. I think Atletico Madrid is the right stand. I'm trying not to be too critical, but I'd say the right sort of match for him. If you'd say Barca, if Barca get him for 20 million, I'd say yeah, good move. But 150 million, no, I wouldn't be going there for 150 million. And Barca don't have that money anyway. Right. I think they're saying that he might be going to Arsenal.
Okay. Oh, really? Okay. Are Manchester United still a thing in Spain? And the reason I say this is because I remember when United, latter years under Ferguson, post Ronaldo departure, the name of the club, I think, was more than what was happening on the field. And we were still winning Premier Leagues in this time, but that was possibly down to sort of slightly weaker opposition and also the genius of Ferguson. But I remember hearing Sid Lowe in around about 2010, I think it was. We played Valencia away and we won 1-0, last minute winner from Chicharito. We ended up getting to the final that year. And there were two comments that Sid Lowe made during that season. One was, so this is the Spanish journalist who works for The Guardian, Spanish-based journalist who works for The Guardian, Sid Lowe. I know you know, but I just want to make sure that everyone knows. I remember we won that match against Valencia, and he said, yeah, but it's Man United. I was like, yeah, but this Man United are not great. You know, we've got Fabio and Raphael filling in midfield sometimes with John O'Shea and Park Ji-sung, who are all good, honest pros, but maybe they'd be gracing Atletico Madrid rather than Barcelona or Real. And then also even the final itself, like 6 months later, we played Barcelona in the final. And he's like, yeah, but it is Man United. So there's a huge concern amongst Barcelona fans and the media that this could be a difficult final, despite the glorious couple of years that they'd had under Pep before that. Is United standing? Is it sort of waning like it is probably domestically, or do people still go, it's Man United?
Yeah, no, I think Man United, if you ask people in Spain, name me 3 English clubs, Man United is always going to be one of those 3 named, probably the first one. It might be a generational thing. I say my generation, Man U will always be the sort of standout English team because of everything they did in the late 90s, turn of the century. It was all those big European nights as well against Real Madrid. You know, there was always good ties and good clashes against Real Madrid. And
yeah, there's a few front pages of newspapers I remember in Spain, AS or Marca, I don't know which one it was, of turning Ferguson into Franco, I think, because he made a couple of comments. I don't know if you've seen this. There's a picture of Ferguson on one side, and they just, one of these sort of evolutions of someone's face. Yeah. And because he'd made comments about Madrid, and there was always a bit more tension between Madrid, the ownership. I mean, he once said he wouldn't sell Madrid a virus, for example. That was, I think, a year before he sold Ronaldo to them. But yeah, so there was always a bit more tension there than the Barcelona one. Again, when Beckham was being sold, we were trying to sell him to Barcelona. Yeah. Barcelona sort of wanted him. Beckham was like, if I'm going to leave United, I only want to go to Madrid. And in the end, obviously money told as well. But yeah, there was always a bit more tension between, probably still is between Man United and Madrid than there is between Man United and Barcelona.
Yeah, but I still think Man United has seen, like, if Man United haven't been in the Champions League for, how long has it been without playing Champions League? Not that long.
It's probably more, look at the post-Ferguson era. I think it's like 13 years. I'm going to say 3 or 4 appearances in that 13, 14 years.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
So like 75% of the time we're not in it.
Still, if they come back into the Champions League, it's seen or perceived in Spain as that bracket of Bayern Munich. I was going to say AC Milan, but we've got that historical standing.
AC Milan, Bruno, is someone who I often think about as like a comparison of someone that Milan obviously won a few more Champions Leagues, but just general stature. They were always in the Champions League. They were always going deep. Yeah, they'd win some, they'd lose some. They were always there or thereabouts in winning Serie A. And their fall has been just like very, very similar to me to United. I think they were 5 years ahead of us. I think they started falling in the late 2000s, like 08, 09, 2010, something like that. And we're sort of there on their coattails as the alternative, if that makes sense.
But the feeling is, or at least the feeling I get with Man U, is that every season you sort of think, right, this is probably the year where they'll start turning things around and sort of getting back into that top 3, top 4. I always feel like it's just there, like I don't get the feeling watching Man United, they're going to finish 10th, they're going to finish 11th. I watch them and there'll be spells in a season where maybe pick up a couple of wins and I think that's it, that's them back up, and for whatever reason it's not consistent, it doesn't work out. But I still get that feeling with Man United. I don't see them as a Brighton or Brentford or a Bournemouth. I see them as a Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City. For me, they're in that same bracket, regardless of how long it's been a struggle. And I can imagine being a Man United fan, it's been a torrid time. But if you're not a Man United fan, I still see them as huge club. I mean, history will always be there, and the badge will always be there. And Man United will always be someone that everyone else is going to respect massively. And you always go to Old Trafford thinking, no, we're not going to pick up anything. But obviously over the years, you start seeing, Burnley is winning at Old Trafford, where that used to be unthinkable. When I was a kid.
Even Sevilla, Bruno. Even Sevilla in 20, that season I mentioned under Mourinho, I think it was 17-18, that season, but I think it was obviously 2018. We got the 0-0 draw away. We lost, I think it was 0-0 until about minute 60. They get a couple of goals, and that's the away goals were still in count then. So I think they win the game 2-1 and ultimately prevail. And Mourinho lost he lost me, but he probably lost a few others already, but he was losing people and fans. But he lost me when he gave a press conference 2 days later, because he started talking about pedigree. And he said, this club has won 3 European Cups and hasn't been deep for 5 or 6 years, or maybe even more, and so on and so forth. But what he just deliberately, as Mourinho would like to do, and you're going to become familiar with him again very, very soon, if not already. In fact, there's a Netflix documentary coming out about Mourinho, as well as obviously him appearing on the Madrid bench next season. But he intentionally just forgotten, or whatever, dropped the who you're losing to. Yes, we didn't win the Champions League every year under Ferguson, but we'd make the quarters or the semis and lose to Bayern or Madrid under Mourinho, for example, or whoever. We'd lose to Barcelona, the great Barcelona in 09 and 2011 in the final, and so on and so forth. We weren't losing round of 16, and if we were, it wasn't to, with all due respect, Seville. So pedigree, true. We're not Madrid. We're not Bayern. We're not, whatever, AC Milan, even in terms of that, or Liverpool as well, as much as it pains me. But we're the next level low, and we're also not under Ferguson, with 1 or 2 rare exceptions. We didn't really go out to Sevilla. It was always an away goal here or there, and it was against eventual champions Dortmund or whatever, or as I said, Bayern in 2010 springs to mind, and Barcelona 09 and 11. Anyway, listen, Bruno, big thanks for joining me today. Are we going to be seeing you on La Liga TV again this coming season?
La Liga TV as a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week channel no longer exists.
Okay.
So that no longer exists. What I have been doing this past season, I'll be doing in next season, is commentary on the international feed for La Liga. So a lot of the same voices or faces that were on La Liga TV.
Where would I hear your beautiful tone, Bruno?
Well, That's a good question.
Because there's a big fan of Talking Tennis, by the way, and he's like, "Is that Bruno from La Liga TV or Spanish commentary?" So he's obviously heard or seen you from somewhere.
Yeah, he probably used to watch La Liga TV. Now the international feed. It's a good question, and it's probably one I should know the answer to. I just think whoever picks up rights for Spanish football outside of Spain or in English-speaking countries will use our commentary.
Got it.
There's a lot of brilliant commentators on it. So Sid Lowe, as you mentioned, Lowe, Graham Hunter, Guillaume Balaguer, Terry Gibson. Terry Gibson,
Terry Gibson, former Man United player.
Former Man United player.
Did he play in Spain for Spain? What's he? Because he's got a Spanish link.
No, he just no. So he just is
fell into it.
Big lover of international football, and he told me he had a big satellite dish in his garden back in the day in England, and he'd pick up Spanish and Italian football, and he started working as a scout in Spain, and now he's in commentary.
Got it. Yeah, Terry Gibson, an 80s gem. All right, Bruno, big thanks for joining me, and we'll catch up again soon.
Brilliant. Thank you, John.